Streaming live on YouTube. You're gonna see the video once I put it in the stand. You'll see the TV. Okay. Okay, Rescue 911. Spider bite, runaway train. A woman is bitten by a black widow spider. A woman is bitten by a black widow spider. A trucker helps a fellow driver who loses his brakes.
911.
Now this was the ending of the other Rescue 911.
This program contains true stories of rescues. All of the 911 calls you hear are real. Whenever possible, the actual people involved have helped us reconstruct the events as they happened.
Now Rescue 911.
We try to prepare ourselves for any emergency, but some seem so small, we may overlook them. I'm William Shatner. Tonight, true stories of unexpected danger and caring people who answer our calls for help on Rescue 911. We begin on June 2nd, 1990, in the suburbs of Las Vegas, Nevada, as Danielle Ingersoll was working on her house alone. While her husband Joe was away on a fishing trip, Danielle had decided to clean and repair the solar heating system on the roof.
I understand she got started real early, about 7 o'clock in the morning, and spent about 3 hours on top of the roof. I used to say you shouldn't go outside without any shoes. Sometimes there's strange-looking bugs that fly in from the desert. But she was always one that was a strong person around the house regarding the bugs and the mice and the spiders.
At 12 noon, a call came in to Network Communications.
911 emergency 47. Okay, let me transfer you to medical, ma'am. Stay on the line.
Her call was transferred to emergency medical dispatcher John Darnell.
Medical emergency. Hello?
I heard nothing at first.
Yeah?
She sounded like an elderly female that she was bitten by something and that she felt like she was going to die.
Is she hung up?
No? She's still on the phone.
Hello?
call back on the line was busy. I was extremely concerned. Generally, someone will be very sick from a bite, but not feel like they're going to die.
Dispatches for rescue 13. You're in lieu of rescue 14.
The nearest available rescue unit was dispatched from the airport, 6 miles away. When we continue,
She was getting little to no oxygen to her brain, and they say 4 to 6 minutes, and it's over.
Since day one of sex ed, we heard something loud and clear. Do not get pregnant. So it's no wonder that we're unsure how to plan for a future where we do want to get pregnant. Modern Fertility is here to help with an easy at-home fertility hormone test that helps you learn about your fertility before you're ready for kids. It's science that gives you insight into how your fertility changes over time. You know, that thing they didn't teach.
Bristles. Stop it.
99 and selling.
Didn't have me one.
Okay, you're on Carroll Circle, right?
Yeah.
Something bit you?
Yeah, I
What was it, an insect or a snake or what?
don't know.
Okay, we're on the way there. You can't tell me any more about it, where you're bitten, on what part of your body?
I don't know what you're saying.
Do you know where you were bitten? Hello?
Apparently, she was blacking out, losing consciousness, and inadvertently hanging up the phone. She sounded like somebody on her last breath of air.
because Las Vegas has an enhanced 911 system, John could read the caller's phone number off the screen automatically.
Yes.
Ma'am, this is the paramedics. We're on the way there. Okay, I wish you wouldn't hang up on me.
Can't help it.
We're on the way there. Do you know where you were bitten?
My big right toe.
A big what?
My big right toe.
What do you think it was that bit you?
Spider. Can't talk.
From what I could assess, she had anaphylactic shock.
During anaphylactic shock, the lungs and throat constrict rapidly. Within minutes, a person's breathing and circulation can shut down completely.
Do you know how long ago?
Yeah. 10 minutes.
10 minutes?
Yeah.
10 minutes ago.
I think so.
No one's there with you?
No. My throat's closing.
I was extremely concerned about her airway closing from the effect of the shock.
Dispatch Rescue 13.
Paramedic Ken Morgan headed to the scene.
The delay in response time added to the critical factor. She was getting little to no oxygen to her brain, and they say 4 to 6 minutes, and it's over. Time was of the essence.
Okay, they've got that.
Should I get this?
If not what?
Just a second.
They've been coming from the airport now for 8 minutes.
This ran through my mind. When are they going to get there? I felt like she was drifting away.
Go to the side gate. My back door. It's open.
Dispatch Rescue 13, she's telling me now that if you can't get in through the front, go through the side gate and the back door's open. You have an ETA? Dispatch Rescue 13 is 4 minutes. 3 minutes now. Copy, 3 minutes. They're going to be there in 3 minutes.
Hurry. I think I'm dying.
I've taken calls where I've been. I know the last person a person's ever talked to. It's not a good feeling, especially when you feel as helpless as a human can feel.
I know it's scary for you. Hello?
I can't. I can't talk.
I know. I want you to stay alert though, okay?
I know what you're trying to do.
Okay.
I
don't want you to faint or become unconscious, okay?
almost can't.
I know. I want you to fight it, okay?
Paramedic Paramedics arrived at Danielle's house within 12 minutes of their first call for help.
Paramedics are there. They're out in the front, okay?
I'm in the bedroom. Just tell him to come in. Just tell him to come in.
Dispatch Rescue 13, she's saying come in. She's in the bedroom.
When we got to her, she did not even have the energy to hold up the phone anymore.
Okay, we got you. Bye-bye.
When we first looked at her, we knew right away this was serious. She had a real awful gray look to her. She had no blood pressure. She had no basic vital signs at all. It's very conceivable, had we been delayed any short amount of time, there'd have been nothing we could have done for her.
The second ambulance arrived almost immediately.
Initially, we put her on some oxygen. We wanted to get that circulation back into her brain again. We had to give her some medication to stop the reaction to the bite. We didn't get any response at all from her, and at that point, we started getting real concerned.
All right, here we go. What time?
We decided it was time to get rolling. It gives you a rattle inside because you realize that this patient is close to death, and you're very limited in the time you've got to keep the patient alive.
Dr. Checky at Sunrise.
Paramedics radioed ahead to the hospital where Dr. Leonard Checky was on duty.
She was experiencing a massive cardiovascular collapse.
It was a very tight call all the way to the hospital. Everything we tried wouldn't come back with a positive response. One of the last things we do before we unload is zap some vital signs out real quick. And at that point, it was the first time we actually got a decent blood pressure on her. And in fact, it wasn't a good blood pressure, but 60 is better than 0. It was evident to me that what we were doing was starting to work, but I knew she still wasn't out of the woods.
By the time Danielle was wheeled into the emergency room, she had regained consciousness. She spent 4 days in the hospital. The doctors found no sign of lasting injury to her heart or brain.
I don't want to do it again.
On the last day of her stay, Danielle received some very special visitors.
Hi.
Thanks for using locals.org, the nonprofit that makes local, over-the-air broadcasts.
He was so near death, and then to see such a jubilant, wonderful lady was like the difference between night and day.
You had me worried.
It was very, very good to see that.
I wish that I could tell you how good it feels to know that there was someone out there when I called to help. This was my life, literally, that they saved, and I love them, I adore them.
Danielle and her husband Joe have since had an infestation of black widow spiders removed from their shed. Fortunately, anaphylactic shock reactions to black widow bites are not common among healthy adults.
She needs to carry an anaphylaxis kit with her so that should she get bitten by another one, she can administer epinephrine immediately before it gets into the full-blown reaction she had this time, because it could kill her very quickly, as it almost did this time.
Since Mom had her accident, I've thought very much about what my life would be like if she didn't make it, and it scares me. I don't think I'm ready to be without my mom. Sounds crazy, as old as I am, but I love her more than anybody in this whole world.
Next.
I'm Michael.
That's one.
To the limit. High up in the...
Wayne Wade and Louis Gallant have been best friends for many years. On the morning of January 14th, 1984, their friendship was tested to the limit high up in the mountains of Nova Scotia, Canada. Early on that winter morning, at the Irving Big Stop truck stop, Louis Gallant spotted a familiar face when he stopped for breakfast.
When I pulled in, that's when I noticed it was Wayne Struck. So I just figured, oh, I'll go wake him up and we'll probably run down the road together.
Yeah, that's pretty good food.
Yeah, it's good.
So I just figured somebody to talk to on the radio just makes the trip that much better than running by yourself.
Wayne Waite was driving an 18-wheel refrigeration truck packed with 47,000 pounds of frozen food. Louis' flatbed semi was hauling 33,000 pounds of steel. Wayne led the way as they headed out around 6 a.m. Though they both drove for the same company, it was the first time they'd ever driven this road together.
So we just run along, chatting back and forth on CV radio.
Okay, what's gonna be coming out here, Wayne?
I just decided to go buy him. I don't normally do that. It's just something I don't, just done it that day.
As soon as the vehicles get to the top of the mountain, they're approaching a grade that they have to slow down, use lower gears. And they have to approach 180-degree turns, and it's a very treacherous mountain that they have to come down on.
Okay, I'm at the top of the hill, eh? Okay, buddy, what do you think about coming off here about 20 miles an hour? Yeah, that's about top for me. I don't want to go through those dead turns any faster than that, Wayne. Yeah, you know, we'll just take her down here easy, yeah. I'll get back to you, man. I'm going to check the brakes, see how they're doing. Well, I don't have brakes, I have nothing. You're joking, right? No, I'm not kidding. I'm serious. I have nothing.
All of a sudden, Wayne hollered on the radio that he lost his brakes.
I'm gonna try. I'm gonna dynamite.
Wayne then tried to use his emergency brakes.
I thought you were joking for a few seconds.
Wayne's tractor trailer weighed 49 tons, fully loaded. A truck that heavy could not possibly make it safely to the bottom of the winding mountain road without any brakes.
There was the only thing to do. I had brakes, not knowing if they would hold the rigs or not. I had to try.
Less than a mile ahead was a stretch of road with enough straightaway for Louis to attempt to use his truck to stop Wayne's. It was their only chance before they reached a curve so sharp it would be impossible for Wayne to maneuver without brakes. As they headed downhill, Wayne was rapidly picking up speed. Louis was forced to keep accelerating to stay ahead of Wayne's truck.
doing. I'm like, I gotta watch the impact. I gotta try to match his speed. I knew the danger of the turn, so hope and pray, I guess, that you get stopped before the turn.
The two trucks came to a stop less than 500 feet from the curb. Louis Gallant escaped without any injuries. His friend, Wayne Waite, had only suffered a few bruised ribs.
I thought it was all over. This was my last trip. Because at that mountain, if your brakes hold one vehicle, you're thankful, because it is a treacherous mountain.
7 years later, Louis and Wayne and their families have become close.
I knew I had one chance to save him. And I just wanted to do it right. I didn't want no mistakes. If he would have hit him and go like lost control somehow, like he would have probably took me out too. He was a friend before that, but he's a special friend now. It's quite an experience. You never forget. It's once in a lifetime. You never want it to happen again.
Wayne still drives semis for a living, but 3 years after that day, Louis retired from trucking.
My son needs the stroke. I hope it doesn't cost too much.
Later on, I will put dog tails and
Tell me how
animal
much this will be.
animal rescue on.
Sorry.
Let's see.
Wait, have you heard about GoodRx? GoodRx finds free coupons to help you save up to 80% on your prescriptions.
How? I have no
I'll do
idea.
Phoenix
GoodRx.
Blood.
Mr. Shapiro, step out of the car, please.
First responders jump into action. Rescue 911 next.
This program contains true stories of rescues. All of the 911 calls you will hear are real. Whenever possible, the actual people involved have helped us reconstruct the events as they happened. Sometimes the margin between safety and danger is only a split second. I'm William Shatner.
Next,
Tonight,
Dr.
true stories
T.
of quick
Medical
thinking and bravery in a crisis on Rescue 911.
This was from 8 to
We begin the
8:30.
day after a severe storm swept through the desert community of Phoenix, Arizona. Most of the footage in this story was taped as the events unfolded on August 15th, 1990.
In the Phoenix community, the rains will hit the mountainous areas quite heavily. As they do that, you can't ever predict how much water is going to be coming down.
It doesn't rain a whole lot here, and when it does rain, people don't realize how deep these washes are and how fast they're running. And this happens every year that somebody will try to drive through them and get stranded.
There's a potential for being swept downstream the vehicle itself. And as the vehicle is swept downstream, there's a potential for it to fill up. They're trapped inside of it. Or there's always a potential for the vehicle to start rolling, turn upside down, and now they're really trapped inside of it. And potential for drowning always exists in a situation like that.
Channel 3, water rescue assignment. Car in the wash at 35th Avenue and Pinnacle Peak Road. Special Call for Battalion 3.
A specially trained swiftwater rescue team and a police helicopter piloted by Phil Tilford immediately responded. These type of missions, they're totally different from our normal patrol. They get the adrenaline going. Captain Paramedic Tim Gallagher headed up the special unit.
For us as rescuers, it presents a real challenge because the infrequency of this type of situation, we don't get to practice it all the time to become very proficient at it. Well, as we arrived on the scene, I saw the vehicle out in the middle of the wash. We noticed that there were 2 occupants inside of the vehicle, and we knew that we had to move pretty quick before the car was swept downstream.
When we continued,
I felt a little more sense of urgency as we got in close to him.
The rubber fresh, look good.
Does it get cool turtles?
4 degree at S.
Bring her home.
We have one vehicle with appears to know 2 passengers in the car. They're right in the middle of the wash. We have strong water flow at this time. We're going to have to size up the situation and go from here and into precision.
Our firefighters were getting into their personal flotation devices and their safety helmets. We began at that point in time to try to get safety lines to the vehicle to stabilize the situation as best we could.
How about the stability of the truck? Well, I'd say the stability of the truck is real poor at this time. Do you see any way that the helicopter is going to be able to be utilized in the rescue of those 2 people? We're talking about it right now, Rick.
It was a consideration to go with the helicopter, but the pilot felt there would have been too much weight on the one side of the helicopter and would probably pull the helicopter into the water. Then it was plan B, to actually go get in the water, attempt to go out and get them and pull them to safety.
But with floodwaters rushing at 15 feet per second, the rescuers would be putting their own lives at risk.
We picked up the life preservers from arriving fire department units and went out over the water again.
You have to talk to the pilot continually at this time. He has no idea where the skid is on the aircraft, what position the aircraft, the tail rotor. If you struck the car, there'd be a good chance that the ship's going to go alongside, and then it would be a catastrophe.
I felt a little more sense of urgency as we got in close to them and I was able to look into their eyes. I saw that they were absolutely terrified. The fact that they were older caused me more concern, and that it was going to be a difficult operation because we were going to have to do most of the work. We had one rope secured to the east bank. We needed to secure the other side to the west bank. We were flaking the rope off and realized that it was not long enough to reach to the other bank, so we secured the second rope to the east bank as well. So we decided that we would attempt to do what's called a shallow water crossing, to go out and actually pull the victims out and bring them to shore.
So, Jim, Ladder 33 is going to go downstream to the south in case we need it for secondary.
I had one crew downstream with ropes and throw bags so that people started floating downstream, we could get to them.
As I moved out into the water, I noticed a bunch of barbed wire directly downstream. And I thought to myself, if I let go, I'm going to end up in the middle of that barbed wire. As I moved to the vehicle, I realized the difficulty, not only the force of the water, it was also deeper than what I had anticipated.
Feel these boulders coming at you, and they hit your knees and legs. Underneath the water, all this debris coming by, and just pounding your legs.
When I got out to the victims, I was on the driver's side, which happened to be the man. I just felt that he was right there, so he came out first. My worst fear was letting go of the victim. Every single step that I took was very critical in my balance.
With his wife still trapped in the unstable truck, 62-year-old William Babella was pulled to safety.
I was scared throughout the whole ordeal. What I was thinking was, don't let go of the road. Because I'm going to do everything they tell me to do, and I'm going to get the heck over to the safe side. I was more worried about the wife than myself, because she can't swim.
She was almost catatonic in fear. It was somewhat difficult to communicate with her because she was terrified. I believe she was so afraid that she was doing exactly step by step what I had told her to do. And I had even told her to walk on my feet.
Nearly 90 minutes after they tried to drive across a flooded road, Marie Babella was finally out of danger.
When I got to the shore there, it was hard breathing because holding on that rope and fighting the water. But I was happy, and it was over, and I was saved. And so thankful.
We got out very, very lucky. No bruises, no broken bones, no trip to the hospital.
There's nothing that you need to do that is so imperative that you have to get to the other side of an unknown situation that quickly. Things can wait.
I will never attempt it again. It's just too dangerous. I can't even remember how we got in there so quick. But we did.
Next.
I felt that they were there to possibly kidnap or do harm to Kelly.
How about we Colonial? I've had.
And put him down for a nap at about 1 or 1:30.
The job that she...
The O'Brien's oldest
It's in danger, and there's
45600. 1-800-644-5600. Call now.
As a parent, there's nothing more frightening than knowing your child's in danger, and there's nothing you can do to help. For George and Vicki O'Brien of Beaverton, Oregon, that moment came on January 14th, 1989. The O'Brien's oldest daughter had to cancel her babysitting job at the last minute, but their middle daughter, 10-year-old Kelly, offered to fill in.
Kelly's a very good babysitter. We've always felt very comfortable with the job that she would do. And it was in the afternoon, too, and we didn't feel any alarm or worry about sending her out.
Mary Willis picked up Kelly and drove her the 3 miles to the Willis' house.
We felt like we lived in a safe place.
How you doing, Kelly?
She had been babysitting for us for a number of times, so there wasn't too much to orient her to, just to explain what Comey had eaten and put him down for a nap about 1 or 1:30. With that, we left the apartment.
Would you go ahead and destroy the latch?
I know we deadbolted the door with a key from the outside.
Are you tired, Comey? Come on, let's go take me out.
Around 2 p.m., Kelly took 2-year-old Comey upstairs for his afternoon nap.
Mommy.
Sheriff's Deputy Dwayne Fuquay recalls what happened next.
Apparently an individual had driven up in front of the duplex looking at a young girl that was inside the duplex. I believe she was 10 years old. She saw this individual in a car looking at her or staring at her. She moved out of line of sight of the individual in the car. He moved the car so that he could continue to watch and possibly see her again. At about the same time that this was happening out front, someone was knocking, another unknown, knocking on the back door or a back window of the duplex.
What do you want?
The individual in the back of the house continued to knock and bang on the door.
She was talking so quickly and yelling that I could hardly understand anything she said. She was in a situation where she didn't know where she was. So we immediately began a trace, which normally takes approximately 8 minutes. In 8 minutes, we're talking the difference between life and death. She didn't have information enough for me to start police over there. that they were there to possibly kidnap the child that was upstairs, or possibly do harm to Kelly. We realized that possibly we might be able to help her faster if we called her parents.
What's the address where she is? As we tried to figure out where she was and then to find exactly the address. Yeah, I don't have the exact address, ma'am, I'm sorry. My mind became a little confused. But I knew the directions to their place, I knew their first names. I could go there in a minute. I did not know their phone number, I did not know their address, I did not know their last name.
We needed to have police sent at least to the area where she was at.
The dispatchers passed Kelly's father's directions on to Deputy Fuquay. They were all they had to go on.
You think about what can happen to this young girl when we did not know where she was exactly, but we knew that there was a small child in trouble. I was concerned and trying to get there as fast.
You want to do something to know that you can help.
We pulled out the phone directory, we started thumbing through that, looking for the names of our friends who lived next to them.
Without an enhanced 911 system, the dispatchers could not get Kelly's address automatically.
You always wonder, is this going to be another statistic? Is it going to be another tragic situation? You run through the gamut of emotions, you run through the entire realm of what could happen as you're trying to get to the location as quick as possible. Not finding the suspect vehicle, we did an area check. The scene was safe and secure.
I felt relieved that I knew that Kelly was safe. I'm extremely proud of Kelly. I think she did a remarkable job for a 10-year-old.
She's real sharp. She's very sharp. She dialed 911. Did the right thing. You'd like to think that all young children would respond the same way, but in fact they don't.
You okay? She just gave me a big hug, and that was about all she could muster at that point. To have her safe again, that to me was the peak of the happy ending.
My advice to other children that are babysitting is to always have the name and address of the people you're babysitting for, and to lock the door.
Kelly is definitely responsible for saving Comey's life. Had she opened the door and someone got in, they could have been beaten up, they could have been kidnapped, they could have been killed. I hope I've been able to express to Kelly how grateful I am to her. We're extremely extremely grateful to Kelly for saving Comey's life.
Some things are good to know, like where to find the cheapest gas in town, and which supermarket gives you the most bang for your buck. Something else that's good to know? If you have Medicare and Medicaid, you may be able to get more health care benefits through a Humana Medicare Advantage plan. Call the number on your screen now and speak to a licensed Humana sales agent to see if you qualify. Learn about plans that could give you more health care benefits than you have today. Depending on the plan you choose, you could have your doctor, hospital, and prescription drug coverage in one convenient plan. From Humana, a company with nearly 60 years of experience in the healthcare industry. You'll have lots of doctors and specialists to choose from. And if you have Medicare and Medicaid,
First responders jump into action. Rescue 911 next.
This program contains true stories of rescues. All of the 911 calls you will hear are real. Whenever possible, the actual people involved have helped us reconstruct the events as they happen. We begin on the afternoon of September 3rd, 1989, in Newberg, Oregon, when two young friends got together to enjoy one of their favorite activities. 17-year-old Jeff McCloskey often went to visit his best friend Chris on the Gish family farm.
We were out back target shooting, my .357, and we were shooting over 2x4s. And after a while, we got a little bit tired of shooting the .357, so I went into the house and I picked out my double-barrel 12-gauge.
Nick Gish had trained his son in the safe use of guns.
We heard the normal rat-a-tat-tat of a .357, the normal shot pattern. The trouble was, the gun he was shooting was chambered for a 2 3/4 inch shell. The shell that he had picked up was a 3-inch Magnum. It went in the gun closed. I don't think I would have noticed the difference. If the gun would have closed, I mean, if it would have chambered, I'd have shot.
The gun just exploded.
It sounded like a hand grenade went off instead of a shotgun.
Nick headed for the back door, I headed for the phone, and immediately dialed 911.
As Nick ran outside, he saw it was his son's friend Jeff who was injured.
You could tell there'd been a massive amount of damage done, and I clamped off his arm right above the wounded area, and you stop most of the bleeding when you pinch the arm. But there's when there's that much damage done, you don't stop all of it.
Paramedics dispatched from Newberg Hospital had no idea how grave the situation was.
Right in those 2 minutes, a lot of prayers went up, because you're holding somebody's life literally in your hand, and you know you don't know what to do about it. All you can do is stop the bleeding and wait.
Chris's sister Jackie ran to the end of the driveway to flag down the ambulance.
The operator was trying to tell us to apply direct pressure to the wounded area. That was just really almost impossible because it was just a jagged wounded area.
But that was my best friend laying there. And he could lose his arm right there. He might just end his life right there. And I felt responsible.
When we continue,
he was bleeding to death. And the only thing that was between him and death was my ability to stop that bleeding.
So much skincare.
ARP. Before they're found. Here's one we really need to reunite with her family. Pamela Mayfield was 6 years old when she was last seen on January 10th, 1985 in Houston, Texas. Her photo has been age regressed to 39 years. If you have any information that could bring Pamela home, please call 1-800-THE-LOST. That's 1-800-843-5678. Please help bring Pamela home.
We were met by somebody out at the end of the driveway who looked quite frantic, and that was the first indication that we had a serious injury taking place.
Paramedic Gary Alex and his partner arrived at the farm within 6 minutes.
Anytime we arrive at a scene not expecting something that really hits us hard, there's a moment of disbelief. When I saw him, it was like being hit in the face with a 2x4.
Let me look. You sure? Yeah, let me see. Oh, that's bleeding pretty bad.
He was bleeding to death, and the only thing that was between him and death was my ability to stop that bleeding. I think if the father had not been controlling that bleeding, the patient would have died probably even before we got there. It's very seldom that we need to use a tourniquet to stop bleeding, but in this case I was unable to use direct pressure. I took a blood pressure cuff and inflated it quite high, putting pressure on that artery. That slowed the bleeding down a great deal.
Jeff kept saying, I don't want to die, I don't want to die. And we kept reassuring him he wouldn't.
My partner in the meantime was starting an IV because we had replaced fluids that had been lost. I got on the portable radio and radioed to my medical control physician.
We're going to need some more and also probably life flight. He's going to need some vascular surgery.
The physician agreed that the patient should be life flighted from the scene to Portland, to the trauma center up there. He thought he was going to die. If people are severely injured, oftentimes they know they're going to die, and we need to listen to that because sometimes they're right.
Off-duty paramedic Dale Mount overheard the call for help on his radio and rushed to the scene.
I've known Jeff for 2 or 3 years. I met him through his father. His father was teaching me how to play guitar. When I first saw Jeff, my thoughts went back to his father. I was on the scene when his father was killed in a motorcycle accident. I was the paramedic on the scene there. It was tough on me to see Jeff in this much pain, after going through, his father's death. And he instantly, Dale, you were with my dad, weren't you? I said, yeah. Did my dad suffer? I said, no, Jeff, not like you're suffering right now. And then his next concern was that he was going to die. He said, am I going to die? I told him, Jeff, let me tell you something. The worst that's going to happen. And Jeff says, I'm going to lose my arm? I said, yeah, that's it. And I truly, thought he had a potential to lose his life, but I didn't want to let on to him that I thought that.
In trauma, we're fighting against time. There's a golden hour. If we exceed that, we've lost the battle. And that's not a golden hour of getting him out of the scene in an hour. That's an hour from the time of the incident until he gets to the surgeon.
The Life Flight helicopter arrived from Portland in less than 15 minutes.
Jeff asked me if I could go along the life flight with him. I had to tell him no. I have to stay here. They have a paramedic on board with a life flight nurse. There's not room. That's the point where the emotions start to well up and you just really fight them back. I
started thinking about what really happened, and I started getting real sick. I just didn't see why. I was the one shooting the gun. It should have happened to me.
Then at that point, Christopher finally let down, where at that time we found out he had been hit also.
Let him on the ground. Lay him down. I saw approximately 6 pellet wounds across his chest and his throat. There's no way I could tell how deep they were. Any wound to the chest, we need to consider as significant. We put him on board the ambulance and began treatment there with oxygen, IVs, and the heart monitor. As it turns out, the wounds were superficial, that is, they were shallow.
The more seriously injured Jeff was flown to Emmanuel Hospital, where a special trauma team was already waiting for him, headed by surgeon Ben Bachus.
When they brought Jeff in, it was clear that he was in an advanced state of shock. He was very pale, cold, diaphoretic, and I was very concerned about getting control of the hemorrhage and getting some blood back into him. He was bleeding at such a rate that he had lost almost half of his blood volume.
Right there, got it?
After we controlled the bleeding, we then evaluated the extremity to see if it could be saved. When we looked at the x-ray, we found that there was a very large piece of metal which was within the depths of the wound. It tore large pieces out of the arteries and veins, but most significant from the standpoint of preserving the extremity is the fact that it tore large segments out of the 3 main nerves which go from the shoulder down to the hand. In this case, there was no chance at all of saving the arm.
Since the accident, Jeff's grown closer to Chris and his family.
I don't trust a family more than I trust the Gishes, and I'm glad I could go through it with them, but I'm not glad that they had to go through it with me. Everybody did their part. Nick did his part, and the paramedics did theirs, and Dale did his, and the doctors did theirs. And if anybody would have taken just a minute or 2 longer, each of them, then that time would have added up, and time that I didn't have.
There's 2 attitudes you can have when something like this happens. You can go, woe is me, and you can live that life. You can go, I'm sorry for me, I'm sorry for me. Or you can be a little bit like Jeff and go, hey, the rest of me is all right. You know, and that's the way he's been. He doesn't have both wings, but that's okay. He's going to do what he's going to do anyway.
Within 4 months, Jeff relearned how to do everything with his left hand.
I knew he was going to be okay when we went out and played tennis together, and he beat me. And I was really worried when the accident happened that he would not be able to accept not having an arm, and then he'd just become an introvert and not do anything with his life. And I think he's already proved me real wrong, real quickly. I think we're closer friends now. I think we built a better relationship after this accident. And so I'm not going to let it stop me, because I figure if it stops me from doing things that I like to do, then it's defeated me. And I'm not going to let it defeat me.
Next,
Paragliding could be dangerous. Maybe you are in the air and it's too strong for you, but it's too late for you. There's a blood flow.
at the base of Mont Blanc in the Alps, the French town of Chamonix is known for its spectacular winter sports and storybook charm. But in the summer months, people come from hundreds of miles around to climb the mountains and enjoy the popular European sport of paragliding. Jean-Claude Tournaire and a group of friends had traveled from nearby Switzerland to enjoy a weekend of paragliding.
We came to Chamonix because the site is marvelous for flying. It's hard to find conditions as beautiful as these anywhere else in Europe.
With Jean-Claude was his close friend, Raymond Moulin. She had only been on 20 flights before.
You're on your own in the air, so she was a little nervous. Every time you fly, you're taking a risk. There's a danger of winds that are too violent, and in that case, you shouldn't fly. The conditions were superb. There were 3 or 4 of us together in the air. We were really having fun. We were even talking while we were in the air.
After gliding for about 20 minutes, they prepared to land in a field adjacent to a new hotel that was under construction. Another paraglider, Claude Jacot, was landing just ahead of them.
It was difficult to approach because of the strong wind, about 30 kilometers per hour. That's why paragliding could be dangerous. Maybe you are in the air and it's too strong for you, but it's too late for you.
I landed and was busy detaching myself. We saw Raymond coming, and then we saw the crane. It made a big ripping noise on the crane. She stopped and was swinging. In my mind, I saw her swing off and fall.
It was really frightening. She was hanging more than 35 meters high, about 100 feet. There were steel pieces on the ground, and cement, and everything. You don't want to land on it.
We could see that it was a little material that was holding her, but from the ground, we couldn't tell if it was solid or not.
With the strong wind, the fabric would slip off. So I decided to run to my car, to catch a rope, and to climb the crane.
A witness to the accident radioed for help. The call was relayed to the Chamonix Safety Center. Rescue units were immediately dispatched.
Everyone was already running over because everyone had seen the paraglide sail get hooked. Then after that, it was quickly go in the bags, boxes, anything you could find to avoid a hard crash if she fell. It's all we could do.
I'm a mountain guide, a rock climber, but it's different because the crane was moving with the wind. Vibrations could be a problem for her, so I tried to walk as soft as possible.
We saw the guy go up. We didn't know if it was good or bad. We had one person in danger, and then the minute he was on the crane, that made 2 people.
When I arrived at the edge of the crane, she was hanging like this of the fabric. It was a very bad surprise. She couldn't see me, So I talked to her. I said, okay, I'm here now, and we tried to give you a rope. She didn't want to move, and she was unable to speak louder. So I couldn't hear her. I told her that I couldn't see her because of the shoot, and that I needed her answer to do the right moves. So by this time she started to talk to me. If the time was long for me, it was much longer for her. Maybe after 2 or 3 tries, she said, okay, I've got it. Ma préoccupation première,
the first thing on my mind was to climb carefully to avoid scaring her, then having her fall.
On s'est obligé d'avoir peur.
Obviously, you're going to be afraid getting on a ladder when you're so high and it's so narrow, and the rungs are so far apart.
Ça marche?
Ça marche.
Allez, c'est parti.
Le pompier était tendu, il avait
The fireman was tense. He was afraid that I would panic, and I wanted to go faster because I wanted to be on the ground.
Je voulais être à terre.
I released the chute from the train.
Je suis encore un peu...
I was still a bit shocked, and then people were all around me. I didn't want to talk at that moment. I just wanted to realize where I was.
Claude Jacot est le héros de l'histoire.
Claude Jacot is the hero of the story. There aren't a lot of words to express my gratitude.
Raymond kept a piece of the sail that prevented her from falling, but she has given up paragliding.
Moi, j'ai envie de fonder une famille.
I'd like to start a family, to live a long time more, and to live well. I wasn't sure enough about my wings. I finally told myself that I've got to let that go to those who really enjoy it.
Everybody has a visor in their car, but a visor in the wrong place can actually make it harder to see. Nick Bolton here with the latest from Bell & Howell. We call it TAC Visor.
Inspired by the face shield used by our American fighter pilots,
TAC Visor can do things no ordinary visor can do, like block blinding glare without blocking your view, so invisible dangers suddenly become visible, and enhance colors to give you vision as sharp as an eagle's. The secret is Bell & Howell's light filtering technology. Nothing to see, right? Boom.
Mr. Shapiro, step out of the car, please.
This program contains true stories of rescues. All of the 911 calls you will hear are real. Whenever possible, the actual people involved have helped us reconstruct the events as they happened.
Okay, this is carriage mishap, stop, drop 2. A man pinned under an antique carriage. A boy
We begin on January 27th, 1991, as Wayne Shoup was driving through the peaceful countryside near his home in Nazareth, Pennsylvania.
On this Sunday afternoon, Wayne had invited his friend Colleen Fry to join him for a ride in an antique carriage he had recently bought.
We have some beautiful trails and some beautiful roads in our area. It's away from traffic, aggravation. You get away from that when you're with horses.
Wayne had been training his horse Spider to pull a carriage for only a month. They turned off the highway onto a gravel road that led back toward Wayne's barn 4 miles away.
Spider was going along real fine. We were doing a nice road trot. What happened had nothing to do with Spider's attitude. It's a sight and flight animal, and they see everything as larger than life. We were coming to the edge of woods on my right-hand side. All of a sudden, there's a field on this bale of hay, and when I saw it, Spider started. So I'm assuming that he saw it basically at the same time I did. I thought the carriage was going to go over. I jumped out. The electric fence was there. When he hit the fence, he out and out spooked. And when a horse spooks, they run. When he touched the fence again, that frightened him further. He must have gone through the fence 3 different times. Every time Spider went into the fence, he got even more out of control. Wayne was half out of the carriage. I was scared to death. I figured sooner or later he was going to fall. I heard the initial crash of them going through the woods, then I heard nothing.
When we continue.
All his clothing had been torn off of his body and was wrapped around his throat.
Oh my God.
Pain.
Wyatt wears a brand new dress.
Like that makes a difference in June's journey. The hidden object game full of mystery. June's Journey. Download now for free.
All his clothing had been torn off of his body and was wrapped around his throat. I just ripped them off so he could breathe. The foot was caught, but I could not get it out. He could not get air. He was having a very difficult time breathing. I also knew I could not unharness the horse myself in the state that the horse was in. And it was just a matter of time before Spider bolted, continued through this wooded area, and dragged Wayne to death.
David Cease and his family were out for a Sunday drive on a route they rarely ever traveled.
I thought
perhaps that there was some kind of a gun accident or somebody with a gun after her. What's wrong?
My partner's drowning. He can't get out.
There's a lot of hunters in those woods. So I was cautious because I had my family with me in the car. When I first saw him, I thought that he was dead. He was gone. So the scene was a mess. What do you want me to do? And he was just pleading for help that instant.
Easy, boy. Easy, boy. That's it. That's it, Spider. Easy.
Go back a little more. Somewhere we had to get this carriage off the top of this guy. She got the horse moving somehow, and I tried to lift the wheel as much as I could. I could see that he was in extreme pain, resting on his forearms because he said it felt better.
Easy. Easy.
All right, buddy, just stay still, stay still. So I'm very cold, and I covered him up the best that I could. Stay still. I could see that the back of his head was ripped apart pretty bad.
Worried about her husband, Debbie Cease drove down the road to see what was happening. She found a phone at the nearest house a mile down the road and called for help.
Control Center to Bushka Township Fire and Ambulance personnel respond. Horse-drawn carriage overturned, man pinned underneath.
Members of the Bushkill Township Volunteer Fire Company were paged, along with local police and medic units.
I want no sirens to be used in case the horse is still attached to that carriage.
First to arrive was EMT Richard Tobias, who happened to be on vacation in the area.
When I got down to the bottom, he was hunched over, but I didn't want to move him at all. I just wanted to leave him where he was until we could better ascertain what was wrong with him. Can you tell me what day it is? He was bleeding pretty badly from his head down to his waist that I could see. All right. The horse was getting pretty upset because a lot of people were coming and they were starting to shout. So I went back, slapped the horse on the side, and told it to go, and pointed where I wanted it to go, and it just took off.
Within 10 minutes, an ambulance got to the scene.
I knew he took down several trees with his body because he was hanging out of the carriage when they hit the woods.
I did not agree to set on 15 liters.
EMT Jennifer Werkheiser helped package him for transport.
In order to immobilize him, we put him on a backboard in a standing position. That's when we first saw the depression on his right chest.
Okay, John.
He was getting combative, and he was getting really anxious.
Get that thing out of here.
A lot of people make the mistake of saying, oh, well, he's fighting with us because he doesn't want us to help him. But usually that's a signal for some serious underlying injury.
Wayne Shoup suffered a collapsed lung, 3 broken ribs, a cracked sternum, dislocated shoulder, and a multiple fractured leg. 3 months later, he's still in physical therapy, but he refuses to let it stop him from doing what he loves to do.
When that horse was running down the road at about 30 miles an hour, and I was holding on to the shafts in the rain, and my legs were pinned under, and the other one was in the wheel, the only chance of survival that I felt was put him in the woods. Otherwise, I'm gonna die.
Spider is still his favorite horse.
The happiest moment was when Wayne got out of his truck after he was out of the hospital and went back to the barn and said, hey, Spider, how you doing?
And accidents happen. I would definitely get back in a carriage with Spider driving down the road. I have no fear of that. People ride horses, fall off, they get back on again and ride. So suppose the good Lord was on my side that day, but everybody
came to my rescue work as a super fine crew and gave me the best medical attention that they could. I have to say that they saved my life, and thank you.
Next.
I was like, well, maybe we should, maybe we shouldn't. I don't think anything like real serious would happen.
Some things are good to know, like medic.
You have. Coming up next on True Crime Network.
Monday, February 12th, 1990 was President's Day. For kids, it meant an extra chance to enjoy a day off from school. And that's exactly what a group of boys in Aurora, Illinois were doing at the home of one of their friends.
We were just having an average sleepover, basically partying down.
I do tend to stay at home with my children, be there for them, and bake the cookies and do the room mother bit. But I've also learned that you can't be everywhere with your child. Once that child is out of diapers and they're going to school, you do have to let go somewhat. You have to be good, okay?
Marcia Oliver left her youngest son, Fletcher, alone inside the house watching television, while 9-year-old Tristan and his 11-year-old brother, Leighton, played outside with their friends.
I waved goodbye in the car and told the children I'd be back in about 15 minutes. They're achievers in school and make good grades. They're not troublemakers. Occasionally we find one up a tree and we have to pull them down. But I wouldn't trade raising boys for anything in the world.
One of the boys at the Oliver's house that day was 13-year-old Jim Morello.
Leighton decided to quit playing war and to start fires by his fort. Leighton's the kind of guy who likes to take risks. He does things that normally I wouldn't do, and I'm a lot bigger than him.
Tristan Oliver also went along with his older brother's plan.
Actually, I didn't think much of what was going to happen. We just started putting those sticks, pine cones, leaves, all sorts of stuff. Leighton followed the gasoline.
Leighton was waving his arms, and I told him to drop on the ground. 3 weeks beforehand in home economics, I learned to put a fire blanket or any kind of covering over anybody who was on fire.
Jimmy smelled the flames on Leighton. And I just thought fire opposite water. Took him over to the faucet and turned the water on.
So I went inside and called 911.
Rescue units with the Aurora Fire Department were immediately dispatched to the scene. Paramedic Joe Bartholomew was among those who responded.
Children have curiosity about fire. The problem with playing with gasoline is that they don't understand what's going to happen. The vapors spread out, and all that vapor will ignite. And there's no way that you can put that gas can down in time before it explodes.
His chest looked like wax. Like he was a wax figure and someone just lit him in the middle of his body.
I just stayed with Leighton, crying my eyes out, just worrying about it. I thought that Leighton would die, sure.
We heard Engine 7 go on the scene, maybe a minute to 30 seconds prior to our arrival. They called back and said that definitely we have the kid and that we're going to need all the burn packs.
Paramedic trainee Tony Nelson was assisting in the ambulance that day.
You could have heard him down the block. He probably still felt like he was on fire. This is the worst case I've ever seen. We couldn't start an IV on him because all the normal sites for us, they were compromised already from the burns.
He had a polyester sweatshirt on. It just keeps burning and melts as it burns. It becomes a hard, crusty material. So you have to get it away from the body as quick as possible. And the hard problem is getting through it.
He wanted to know if he was going to die. It wasn't my job to tell him that he wasn't going to die, but I couldn't tell him anything else. I couldn't hold him. I couldn't hold his hands. I couldn't give him anything to grab because his hands hurt so bad. All I could do was just soak him down and tell him, if you feel like screaming, you go ahead and scream. He did. And he said some things a little boy shouldn't say, but in his situation and the pain that he was in, I would not hold it again.
At Mercy Center Hospital, Layton was treated by a trauma team, including nurse Linda Hemmingson.
We really felt the tremendous sadness, that feeling that he was burned so severely that he probably wasn't going to make it.
As soon as Layton's mother got back to the house, she was rushed to the hospital.
It's all right. No one's angry. It's just an accident. If my son saw me hysterical in there, he would know the extent of the damage. So I kept myself in control till I got out of the room. There was plenty of time to cry later, believe me.
While Layton was airlifted for 30 miles to the nearest burn unit at Loyola University Medical Center, his parents could not go with him and had to drive themselves.
I don't really remember a lot of the conversation because one of the others would start to cry and couldn't see to drive the car. So we'd pull over, and whoever's not driving gets in and drives again.
He was my son. He couldn't die. He's my firstborn. I lost count of the amount of prayers I said. He was very similar to saying, please God let me, take some of this pain away from him.
I would ask them what are the extent of the burns. They started at 40% full thickness burns and worked their way up to 65%. All Layton had left was muscle on his neck and shoulders.
Hi, it's Dr. Alcan.
Layton was placed in the intensive care unit and attached to a respirator. His family and friends began the tense wait to see if his body would be able to fight off infection.
His chest, both of his arms, and most of his face.
His mother died. But although she used the precious drops, that did not work.
I read to Layton constantly when I was in the room. To hear my voice, I thought might soothe him a little bit. It was difficult because the one thing I wanted to do was pick him up off the mattress and hold him, and I couldn't do that. I really shouldn't have been touching him, although I did sneak a kiss on his toes every so often.
Miraculously, Layton slowly recovered. He was transferred to Shriners Hospital in Cincinnati. There, he underwent a skin graft, and his life became a painful cycle of bandage changes and physical therapy. Before he could be released, his mother had to be trained to do the necessary daily therapy.
The thing that happens to a burn patient is they tend to contract downward. So you're always trying to extend their arms, extend their neck. He screamed just about straight through the exercises for about 4 or 5 months.
She just wouldn't let me quit. And she keeps moving forward.
It's only been a year since Layton Oliver was burned.
He's a gutsy boy, he really is. To make his arms move again, get his fingers moving again, I didn't think he'd be able to write again. He's got his, I suppose, a little bit of arrogance back, which is good.
My dad helped me learn meditation, and it relieved a lot of the pain. I do many sports I can get my hands on. I wrestle with my brothers, for instance. I'm just about as as good as I was before. It's my usual everyday moves.
I don't know the name of his friend, but that's a friend for life because he saved him. If he hadn't have thought about what he was taught when we do our school drills with the kids of stop, drop, and roll, I think he'd be dead.
A lot of people think I'm a hero, but I don't think I am because it was
Looks
the
like
first thing
they're
that went into
playing
my mind was to
soccer.
cover him with something.
Absolutely, he's a hero. I probably wouldn't be here if it wasn't for Jim.
If there's one thing I've learned, it's that gasoline should be locked up just like the chemical pesticides. Children think they're immortal, and it doesn't wear off until they have a really terrible scare.
I'm taking flying lessons. I will probably be a pilot for flying kids like me back and forth to the Shriners. Voluntary.
I see Layton's future as extremely bright.
Hey, I
For
just got a
more-
text from my sister. You remember Rick, her neighbor?
Sure.
For more full rescue
Still runs marathons.
911 videos, hit the big red button and subscribe. I gotta end this broadcast
Wow.
because my battery's low.
We're not about